Now when loading stocks, I will of course trigger it here in the header, but I don't want to execute all the logic here, because when loading stocks, we actually do change our state, because we basically set our old state to the new state we just fetched from the database. So first of all, I'll add a click listener here to load data, and I'll name it load data. Of course, I also need to have a method here, load data maybe, and in load data, I now want to execute a load data action in my store. Now that action doesn't exist yet, neither in stocks here, nor in portfolio. So let's add one. The thing why it doesn't exist yet is, or the reason, is that this really influences both portfolio and stocks. We change the state in both pieces. Therefore, I will create a new file in the store itself, actions.js here, where I want to trigger the respective commits I need. I need an action because it will run asynchronously. So in here, I will export a constant and name it load data, for example. This will be the name of the action. And this shall be a function where, of course, I do get my commit function. I'm not getting any payload because I'm not passing one. Instead, here I want to reach out to the server. So I will use view. Now, to be able to use view, I, of course, also need to import it. Otherwise, we don't have access to it in this file. View HTTP, now without a $sign because we're accessing it directly on the view object itself. Get. And of course, we also need to reach out to data.json. Now, once we get it, I want to execute then, because we do have a promise here. Keep this in mind. And there, I simply want to extract the data and transform it into a JavaScript object, which also gives us back a promise. So we need to call then again. This is what we learned in the view resource module in this course. And then I got my extracted data here. Or let's just name it data, that's shorter, I guess. And with that data, I first want to check if we actually do have any data. So if data, otherwise there's nothing we can do with it, because if we click load and there is no data on the server, well, then I don't want to try to set my state to it. So in this case, I will get my stocks from data and then the stocks field, because this, if you have a look at it, is how it's set up. In data, we get this stocks node. We also got stock portfolio and funds. So that will be what I also extract, funds from data.funds, and also my stock portfolio from data stock portfolio, like this. With that, I extracted all the data from the body I got back with the request or with the response. I will create a new portfolio with this, a new object where I simply store stock portfolio and funds. And this, of course, is the state I set up in the portfolio.js file with funds and my stocks. So the last step and then is to commit two mutations. The first mutation is set stocks. I do have that here, where I simply, well, exchange my stocks. And I will need the same for portfolio. So here I also want to add set portfolio to be able to override that whenever we do actually hit that load button. So set portfolio also takes the state, and this new portfolio I'll pass with the commit function. And then I want to set state funds equal to portfolio funds. And I want to set state stocks, this array of stocks in my portfolio, to portfolio stock portfolio. Or first I want to check if that exists. If this is empty, in this case, I want to set it to an empty array. Otherwise, I'm checking if it exists. If yes, I will set it to it. Otherwise, to an empty array. That is how I should say it. So I get set portfolio now too. With that, I can not only commit set stocks and pass along my stocks, but I can also execute set or commit set portfolio and pass along my portfolio like this. So this is my load data action. Now, of course, in the header, we're not using that. So let's wire this all up and test it in the next video.